Hello, and welcome to This Song Sucks, a podcast where a couple of pals get together and talk about the music that we hate. Joined as always today by Mr. Hayden Crawford, Dark Denim himself. How's it going there in Tuscaloosa, buddy?
Dark Denim. It's going pretty good, man. Got a fresh Topo Chico.
Oh, yeah, can't beat that. And in our third hosting slot today, joining us again is Adam, I promise I'm not growing anything funky in my backyard, Morrow. How's it going, buddy?
Save that for the crawl space. Yeah, doing pretty good here.
Yeah,
got my coffee ready to go.
I just see your Instagram is just so full of gardening delight.
I try to contrast the rest of the timeline. It's a public service.
None of that devil's lettuce, huh?
Yeah.
Kale? Are you referring to kale?
It's devil with your beehole.
True.
Oh,
true.
Well, we're off to a great start here. So today, this one comes at the request again of Mr. Crawford. We're going to be talking about Ed Sheeran's "Thinking Out Loud," the smash hit from 2014 or 15.
The baby now.
Yep, that's it. Hayden, just the perfect recreation.
You sound just like him.
I know. I look just like him too.
Oh God, that'd be.
Why aren't you a famous ginger?
I've got some good material.
You're not famous or ginger.
I've got some good material on the ginger vein.
Oh no! Oh man! So we'll get into it. He's born in 1991, Edward Christopher Sheeran in Halifax, West Yorkshire, England. He began singing in the church choir at 4 and playing guitar at age 11. So, nice little mix of beginnings to get you to be, a huge pop star. I found a quote somewhere that from a school report at age 13 described him as a natural performer, and his classmates voted him most likely to be famous, which really makes me wonder how horrific the rest of these children must have looked like.
Wait, where did he go to school?
This is just his primary school or middle school, age 13, but it's West Yorkshire, England.
Oh, well, that says a lot.
Not a lot of orthodontry at that point, probably.
Just a lot of boiled beef and cabbage.
Which part is boiled?
Both. Yeah, to get together.
No, separately, so there's no cross-mingling of flavors.
You just got to throw them both in there at the same time for that best, just completely devoid of flavor.
Yeah.
So he began performing live in 2005, and a source I found, I was actually able to find, it was a set list from his very first live performance.
I love set lists.
So it's from April 16th, 2005, 8 p.m. Doors open at 7:30 with a pay bar. It's got a picture of him with what looks like a Epiphone Les Paul.
Very strong Keller Williams vibes in that picture.
Yeah, he's got like the leather bracelet on his right hand.
And a face full of metal.
I mean, it was 2005.
Yeah, that you can't fault him too much for that.
And he was 14, I believe, when that picture was taken.
Okay. Yes. So there's some great. I don't know if you can see the song listing on here. A lot of it.
Oh yeah.
A lot of it apparently is from his debut album Spinning Man, which I think he's probably done a lot to probably keep that from coming out on the internet. But you got cover classics like Wonderwall,
The Remedy. The famous Jason Mraz. Is that who that is? Somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean there's some Damien Rice. Cannonball, very singer-songwritery.
Time of Your Life.
Yeah, my favorite, though, is number 14 in the first set is Layla, and next to it, it says Electric.
The guitar switch.
The guitar switch.
This is the most professional first set list that I've ever seen. I thought this was going to be written in crayon.
No, it's really insane, too, because he's got 21 songs in the first set, and then 19 or 20 and then in the second set, so it's just like he must have been playing for like 3.5 hours.
I mean, you can't deny this dude came in hot with some professional aspirations.
Yeah,
you got to come in hot when you're playing those Clapton licks.
I like that he's playing the Royal British Legion. Like somehow
Yeah, the
playing,
Legion.
like shitty Legion halls is like a universal, or at least cross-Atlantic experience.
So the next sort of bit in his chronology I found is that in 2007, so he's 16 years old, he auditions for this TV series called Britannia High. Apparently this is like a very short-lived musical drama that would be similar to Glee, about a bunch of kids who perform in high school or whatever.
So the opposite of Cool Britannia. Got it.
Yes. I found a behind-the-scenes making-of documentary where it shows them casting people, and he's on it. And the judges are like raving about his singing and guitar playing and how great of a musician he is. And they, show him playing and singing a little bit. But in the end, he doesn't get cast. And it seems what they're showing is that he's so bad at dancing. Like they don't even give him the chance to like learn. So they just flat out don't cast him because.
Ironic, given the music video for the song we're talking about today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would argue that he still looks just as stiff in the music video as he did when he was 16.
I would not argue against that.
I don't know about y'all, but I can't stop playing Freaker by the Speaker in my head because of that picture.
We could get into Freaker by the Speaker later.
A fellow loop pedal aficionado.
Yes. And I kind of wondered, it's 2005 in his first set, was he doing the loop pedal at that point? I mean, it was still, Keller Williams was doing his thing at that time, but.
I was definitely looping with an Epiphone Les Paul at that point.
Who wasn't? It was in the air.
So in 2009, so he's like, I guess he just finished high school. He begins studying music at the Academy of Contemporary Music in Surrey. But after one semester, or even with, I guess sometime during the first semester, he just left and toured with a hip hop artist named Just Jack.
God.
Just Jack, famous England hip hop artist, Just Jack. Here's another thing I wanted to show you that I found from this time period. It's his report card.
Oh, I'm excited about this.
So he's enrolled in 6 classes, and he has an F in every single one of them.
He kept it consistent there.
Now, I'm assuming that it's probably just because he just left during the middle semester and didn't really complete the course or stopped showing up. But you'll notice that one of the classes is called Songcraft. And I have to imagine that he probably would have gotten an F anyway, even if he kept showing up.
YouTube would suggest otherwise.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. The dude has done quite well for himself. Who knows what they're trying to teach at the school? This is also a funny grading system here. This is not an F on a to F scale. This is like a pass-fail situation, basically.
Yeah, it's his pass, merit, distinction, and then fail.
He didn't even get the finalist deferred, which is a current fail, but has been given the opportunity to resit. So he didn't even get like a second chance. They were just a hard pass or not pass.
I can't quite read it, Josh. Is there a category for boiling meat?
that was the first semester. He did fine.
I believe they cover that in professional musicianship.
Is there one for boiling and one for corning meat? Or in hashing as well. It's got to be a hashing course.
So apparently in the year 2010, he played over 300 live shows. I don't know if it's with this Just Jack character or on his own, but he's just really tearing up the road. And he starts to get more recognition from his YouTube channel around this time. In fact, apparently Elton John and the actor Jamie Foxx were really into him after seeing his YouTube videos. In fact, Jamie Foxx had him give him some U.S. radio exposure by having him perform on his. Apparently, he has a Sirius XM channel called the Foxhole.
Wink.
Yeah, I was also reading that when Sheeran played L.A. for one of the first times, Jamie Foxx was like, "Come crash at my house."
Yeah, I saw that story as well.
Ed Sheeran must be the greatest hang of all time. All the biographical stuff that I've read about him is like, how did he get so big? So 2010 to when this song is released is just like one continuous trip through the upper echelons of pop music and pop culture.
It's very interesting to me that that's the case with him because this morning as I was refreshing my notes and trying to find just the YouTube video for the song, I kept typing in George Ezra because I just I got them mixed up. That's how forgettable Ed Sheeran is to me, but it shows what I know.
Yeah, I mean, he must just be a really chill hang. So his first single was The A-Team. It blew up in the UK. It entered a UK singles chart at number 3 in 2011. It would be nominated for Song of the Year at the 2013 Grammys. However, it did not win. So his first full album, Plus, it's just the plus sign, was released in September of 2011. It debuted at number 1 on the UK album charts.
Jeez.
This is a charmed young man at this point.
Yeah, I mean, from going to like touring with some random UK guy to having a song that I think it has like over 3.5 billion views on YouTube at this point, being nominated for a Grammy.
It's insane.
He opened for Taylor Swift's tour from March to September of 2013. And I looked at the list of it. There was 3 dates on that tour where he shared opening duties with Florida Georgia Line.
Now we're getting into some good stuff.
Oh, hell. What's insane about, because I read about the Taylor Swift tour, and then it notes that he did that from March to September of 2013, and then in October headlined a 3-night stand at Madison Square Garden.
What?
Yeah.
It just casually going from the opening act, which, you got to be pretty big to open for T Swift, I would assume, but straight into 3-night stand at Madison Square Garden.
And all of this is pre-Thinking Out Loud exposure?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
Yes.
The A-Team was also pretty popular, which kind of bumped up his first album. But yeah, the 2013 I think was kind of crucial for solidifying his future success in the United States with getting all the exposure on that Taylor Swift tour. He also apparently during this time was contributing writing songs for the boy band One Direction.
So he's getting songwriting credits along the way.
I'm terrified of what the net worth is going to be when we get to that.
So he was nominated for Best New Artist at the 2014 Grammy Awards. He lost that to Macklemore. So
Seattle rep. Stand up.
And his second album, Multiply, which is just the X, so he's really into his mathematical operators. It was released June of 2014. This is the album that Thinking Out Loud is from. What I found is apparently Sheeran wrote 120 songs over a 3-year period for this album. And it really makes you wonder how shitty, like, the 100+ songs that didn't make it on the record are. Because it's really unlistenable, at least for me. I mean, the episodes we've done so far, I've listened through entire catalogs. I enjoyed listening to Lou Bega's catalog far more than I did Ed Sheeran.
Oh, man.
That's a bold statement.
I mean, it really, even just putting it on in the background while I was, at work, I just couldn't get through it. I had to stop.
Why did you hate it so much? It's interesting to me, because we're obviously in the vast minority here. So.
Well, when he starts rapping is really when he loses it for me.
Oh, there's rapping.
Oh, man. He raps so much, Hayden.
Oh.
He also talks about being drunk a lot,
Tight.
which I guess when you're, from the UK, it makes sense that you're rapping about being drunk when you're 19 and 20.
Pounding mead in Hogwarts or whatever. What if they do over there?
That's totally it.
But the album Multiply, it peaked at number 1 on both the UK albums chart and the Billboard 200. Thinking Out Loud, actually, it spent 8 weeks at number 2 on the Hot 100 single chart. Never reached number 1, and that's because Uptown Funk was also at the same time.
It ran into a buzzsaw. That's what happened.
Unstoppable force with that one. So the numbers in 2014, combined streams of Sheeran's catalog topped 860 million. And so Spotify names him the most streamed artist, and the album X, or Multiply, is the most streamed album that year.
This song got almost 2 million streams in 1 week.
I got some more statistics as we go through
That
here.
is nuts.
That's insane.
Multiply was nominated for Album of the Year at 2015, but lost to Beck's Morning Phase, so go Beck.
Wow.
However, Thinking Out Loud won Song of the Year at the following year, 2016 Grammys.
Did not have a lot of stiff competition, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think I remember thinking Blank Space, maybe, by Taylor Swift.
That's a banger.
That probably should have won, but hey, what do I know? That was the only one that actually provided some actual competition.
He performed the song Thinking Out Loud at the Grammys that year, and he was playing with John Mayer, Herbie Hancock, and Questlove. And so I went and listened and watched that this morning. And
I'm sensing a pattern developing here.
Herbie Hancock kind of looked like he was being held hostage the entire time. I mean, he was doing his damnedest to put in nice little jazzy piano plinks in between the singing, but like the look you get on your face when someone's talking to you in a loud bar and you can't hear them, but you just kind of pretend that you do so they'll stop talking.
Sure.
Like, that's the look on Herbie Hancock's face for most of the performance.
That's a very distinct look.
So actually, even though it won the Grammy and it was streamed the most on Spotify, Multiply was only the second best-selling album of 2016, behind Adele's 25. So coming in second.
Once again, ran into a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Adele you don't want to, that's just a bad idea, going up against Adele.
Yeah, so after those second place finishes, he releases Divide in March of 2017, which again is just the mathematical symbol. So this is the album that Shape of You is from. It debuted immediately at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles. It led him to being the most streamed artist on Spotify again that year. Shape of You was the best-selling single of 2017, and again, Divide was the best-selling album of 2017. And to this day, Shape of You is still the most streamed song on Spotify with over 2.6 billion streams.
Do you mind know what
None of that is surprising.
What does 2.6 billion streams compute to?
Yeah, what's your number on that one, Adam?
A lot. Let's see. The average stream is okay, here's the deal. It's tough to compute because every label has a different amount that they're paid, but you can, middle of the road, kind of on the generous side, would be 0.006. And that's just the cut going to everybody who had a hand in this. So for like Sheeran, he's got co-writers, he's got producers, he's got label people, they all have to be paid.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that he took out his red balance quite a bit faster than most of the projects I've been involved in.
It looks like about $6 million.
No, 2.6 billion streams.
How many zeros are in a billion?
So it's 15,600,000.
Oh.
That's a pretty generous number, I think, from Spotify for a major label, but still.
But even if you're cutting that down by half until it reaches Ed Sheeran's bank account, a quarter of that is still almost $4 million.
All from a red-haired boy with boiled cabbage stuck in his teeth.
And you're also talking about a guy who probably was one of the last to still sell well on iTunes.
Yeah.
I would be willing to guess, especially with Thinking Out Loud, because I think that was kind of some of his management notes that it was like a cross-generational kind of thing. So
because the olds are listening to it on iTunes.
Right. And he's very good at the YouTube presence, which can be monetized.
Oh, for sure.
Why do you think the olds liked listening to that song, you guys?
Thinking Out Loud?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Well, we're kind of pivoting into what makes the song work, but I mean, it's the old Blue-Eyed Soul kind of thing. It's just hyper listenable.
It's a very distinct old Blue-Eyed Soul.
Yeah. We don't have to go there yet, but it's funny because like Shape of You, it was the Ed Sheeran song that was in my head. Like when I started listening for this podcast, and then going back and listening to a 4-minute and 41-second album version of Thinking Out Loud is like, how did this get so big on the radio?
Yeah.
Like I understand how it did, but like Shape of You, complete sense. It's got hooks for days. It's got danceability, I guess, or at least it has some rhythm, versus Thinking Out Loud is just, here's a ballad. It's very like walk the girl down the aisle kind of vibe, which I guess never goes out of style.
Yeah, funny you should say that exact line, because a vast majority of the YouTube comments that I spent way too much time digging through We were talking about getting married and like walking down the aisle to that song.
Yeah, we'll
Cetera.
definitely talk about that. I've just got a few more stats that just blew my mind. Going through this, I had never really listened to. I think I had heard "Shape of You" maybe a couple of times, but just I was astonished with how popular this guy is. He released his fourth album called Number Six Collaboration Project in 2019. The first single from that is called "I Don't Care," and it's a duet with Justin Bieber. It debuted on Spotify with nearly 11 million global streams in one day, which broke the single day streaming record at the time. And it now sits at number 7 on that list. And every song ahead of that is a Christmas song,
Whoa.
which is kind of skew stuff.
Hmm.
And the last little bit of Spotify data is that Sheeran again comes in second place as the second most streamed artist of the last decade on Spotify. Any guesses to who's number one?
Adele.
Nope. Hayden?
Eric Clapton.
It's Layla unplugged.
No, it was actually Drake, and I think that just probably has to do with volume.
Hotline Bling. Cell phone bling. What is it?
Yeah, Hotline Bling, and there's just a tons other. It's just volume for Drake at this point. Sheeran's got maybe a half dozen really huge songs or so, but Drake just has a lot. So before we get into the specifics of our song today, Thinking Out Loud, I'm sure that you probably have seen this, guys, but old Ed's been getting into some legal trouble. He's had 2 lawsuits filed for Shape of You. The first of which was in 2017. Partial writing credits were given to the writers of TLC's No Scrubs.
What?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Talk about a banger.
There is a moment in the pre-chorus melody where the melody and the rhythm are nearly identical to the chorus of No Scrubs. I mean, it's like a very sort of brief thing, but when you go listen to it, it's pretty obvious. And to give Sheeran and the producers credit, apparently negotiations for the writing credits began before the song's release. So they probably recorded it and they realized, oh fuck, this sounds a lot like No Scrubs. Maybe we should contact those people.
But we're gonna make so much money that we'll share writing credits.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna have to listen to this song now.
The second lawsuit was in 2019, and it was filed by an artist named Sammy Switch, Sami Switch. And he alleges that Shape of You copies his 2015 song "Oh Why." And what Switch says is that he sent this track to Sheeran and his producers in the hopes of collaborating with him. And then I guess he's saying that they just, they never contacted him, just stole it. And if you go listen to this Sammy Switch track, it's much slower, but the thing that's clearly, it is the exact same. I mean, the name of the song is the "Ooh ah ooh ah ooh ah ooh ah." That part of Shape of You, it's the same. There's just the only difference is that Sheeran's is much faster.
So are they gonna swat this little fly away? I mean, surely his legal team can just make it disappear, right?
Here, this is what's funny about it, because we mentioned trying to estimate how much money he's received off of this, and Sheeran has been blocked as a result of this lawsuit from receiving royalties for Shape of You until the case is resolved.
Ooh, got him where it hurts.
Ouch.
And as
is that still ongoing?
Yes, I mean copyright lawsuits usually drag on forever, and the COVID situation has sort of made things even slower. The full trial date isn't set for January 2022.
So he's got to go another year without a little trickle.
Yeah, so I mean the lawsuit started in 2019. I don't know when the decision to halt royalties was, but it's going to be somewhere in the range of 2 years where he's not able to collect any money from any resource on this song.
Poor fella. Too bad it doesn't cost much to boil water.
Another lawsuit was in 2017. He settled out of court for $20 million in a lawsuit that claimed his song "Photograph" was a note-for-note copy of the song
Nickelback.
I wish, but it was the lawsuit was filed by Matt Cardle for his song "Amazing." I never heard of Matt Cardle, but apparently he was famous for winning the X Factor, which is like Simon Cowell's new competition show.
And which Ed Sheeran has been involved with, right?
I think
Like
so,
he's
yes.
played on it before?
Yes.
I mean, it's not like it's like a stretch.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I didn't care to really. I listened to each of those songs once, and I didn't really care to dive into it too much because really the similarities that they're just both equally as lame.
He settled for $20 million.
$20 million.
He's just been shoving his grubby little hands everywhere, hasn't he? Just taking stuff. How many lawsuits is this?
So that's 3 so far, and
Wow, I did not know about any of these.
now we're getting into Thinking Out Loud, which has 3 lawsuits on its own. So before I get into those details,
Well, I have a question
Go
before
ahead.
you go forward. I mean, I don't know if you had this information, but is this a result? Someone who has billions and billions of views, is this kind of on par for how many copyright lawsuits you would see just with an artist this magnitude, or is this a specific pattern that is related to Mr. Sheeran or Ezra, whatever his name is?
I think it's hard to separate the two out because, I mean, Photograph is probably a lesser known song. The $20 million lawsuit, he probably had less to lose from the royalties of that song. So he said, we'll just give you this money and you're not going to claim writing credit, which is what the Shape of You lawsuits and the Thinking Out Loud lawsuits are more about receiving writing credit, which means if the plaintiffs win, they'll be receiving revenue in perpetuity from the song. So, I mean, I think there's probably a bit of a pattern, but it's also hard to separate from the fact just of how huge these songs have been in terms of streams and sales. So it's probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Well, when you get into what the most recent lawsuit is, it certainly seems like it's a pattern.
Yeah. So before I get into those details, the Wikipedia page on this song has a story about how he wrote the song, and it's kind of cobbled together from sources on the Wikipedia page that don't have links to them anymore. So, kind of take this with a grain of salt. What is true, though, is that he has co-writing credit on the song with Amy Wadge, who is a British singer-songwriter that he's knew and had been writing and recording with in his early days. So the story is that Wadge was hanging out at Sheeran's home just before the planned release of his second album, Multiply. She was downstairs just strumming some chords on the guitar while Sheeran was upstairs in the shower. He heard her and just ran downstairs, and they finished writing the song in 20 minutes, recorded it the next day.
Naked?
And that's kind of what I thought. I was like, could you imagine how terrifying it would be? You're sitting in the room, like, probably smoked a joint.
All I saw in my head was just a red dingus flopping around as he ran down the stairs.
a completely naked, soaking wet Ed Sheeran just burst into the room. So, they record it the next day. It gets put on the album right before it's released. So that's like the story is that they kind of came up with it together, worked on the lyrics. She was playing these chords, whatever. So, as I said, there's and have been 3 lawsuits filed against this song by various parties. So, the discussion goes to, and it's pretty obvious, I think, for most casual music listeners, that the song is very similar to Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On. And Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On was actually written by a dude named Ed Townsend. And so the first lawsuit was filed in 2016 by the heirs. Townsend died in 2003, so his heirs all received portions of the credit for Let's Get It On. In the lawsuit, quote, the defendants copied the heart of Let's Get It On and repeated it continuously throughout. The melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic compositions of Thinking Out Loud are substantially and or strikingly similar to the drum composition of Let's Get It On.
The first time I heard this song, it stopped me dead in my tracks.
Yes. So we'll keep going into more details, but this lawsuit was actually dismissed on a technicality in early 2017. It had something to do with the plaintiffs not serving all of the defendants in the suit, which I guess is some sort of communication error. Maybe whatever lawyer the Townsend family hired didn't know what they were doing. But the second lawsuit was filed in 2018 by a company called Structured Asset Sales. They owned a portion of the copyright to Let's Get It On because one of the Townsend heirs sold the rights to him or to this company. SAS tried to join the original Townsend family lawsuit, but after that request was denied by the courts, SAS filed an entirely new lawsuit against Sheeran. So that's where the second lawsuit comes in. The suits, they wind their way through the courts. mid-2019, a Manhattan judge delayed a jury trial for the cases, citing that the court should wait until the ruling for the Stairway to Heaven copyright suit was resolved. So, are you familiar with this? The Led Zeppelin lawsuit. Y'all have heard about this, I assume?
No.
So, a band, I think they're called Flight, they sued Led Zeppelin over saying that Stairway to Heaven copied from their song called Taurus. Again, this case has been going through the courts for years now.
It's too early in the morning to talk about Robert Plant. Can we just not?
Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, I don't want to. We'll get to him eventually in a different episode for sure.
Oh, no.
So the Stairway case would actually later be ruled in favor of Led Zeppelin, and the reason that it happened and the reason it's important for the Sheeran case is that it confirms a very specific technicality in U.S. copyright law. And so according to copyright law, only the form of the song as originally registered with the Copyright Office is protected by copyright. So before the 1978 update to the copyright law, songs had to be registered with the office in the form of sheet music. Like you couldn't send in a recording and saying, this is my song. So what that means is any changes or additions that happen during the recording process are not protected by copyright.
Interesting.
So what that means in practicality is that when you have plaintiffs in lawsuits alleging copyright infringement of music registered before 78, they're at a huge disadvantage because they can't play any of the recordings in the courtroom as evidence during the trial.
Oh, man, that makes it tough, huh?
Yeah, so it's based solely on, each side will hire a music professional or musicologist and will look at like the elements of the music in the sheet music.
So they just examine sheet music? Like, how do they present it to a jury?
That's what makes it tricky is you have someone trying to explain elements of melody and harmony to...
Without any audio?
Yeah.
How do you pick a jury for that?
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, the defense obviously probably trying to pick a jury of just the most... It's true for any jury trial and ever. You're just picking as idiots.
Right. I mean, you're picking teams, basically.
Someone you feel like you can manipulate or just is not going to understand those kind of details.
Right.
So we'll get into more of those kind of details when I talk about what I don't like about the song. But for the Sheeran lawsuit, so after the Stairway to Heaven lawsuit fails in 2020, Structured Asset Sales, this company suing Sheeran, they try to pull a tricky maneuver where they file a third lawsuit against Sheeran. And so their idea is that the company is going to re-register the copyright for Let's Get It On so that the recordings, the actual Marvin Gaye recordings, can be played in court during the trial for the lawsuit.
Oh, sneaky.
Sneaky.
Yeah, so Sheeran's legal team responded by saying that the company misled the Copyright Office when it re-registered, like intentionally misled them, because apparently they only own an 11% stake of the copyright.
Which is not enough to do that.
Yeah, they're arguing that because it doesn't have everybody re-registering the copyright, it doesn't count.
Music copyright law is so stupid. Can I just get that out of my system?
No, we'll definitely talk about that here in a second. But
They have a lot of opinions there too.
the last little bit of the lawsuit is that in October of 2020, the case has been further delayed upon request by Sheeran's lawyers, stating that international travel for trial dates is unfeasible due to COVID-19. So right now, it's like I think scheduled for sometime later in 2021 until we get a jury trial. But of course, it could be delayed again. So this could be going on.
So Ed has a whole section of his Google Calendar dedicated solely to his legal
Yes.
appointments. Is what I'm gathering at this point. Like, there's no way he's just keeping this all straight in his head.
Right. And if he were like touring, it'd be kind of tricky to fit that in. But obviously, he's not right now.
Sounds like it's about time to segue into the section where we rip into him like a boiled pot
Yes.
roast.
Boiled pot roast and cabbage. So again, I have a lot of details of analytical things I can talk about, but Hayden's the one that brought us this song. So Hayden, why don't you kick us off? What really, grinds your gears about this?
It's very personal for me, because as both of you know, I spent several years managing the textbooks department at a university bookstore, which subjected me to egregious sadistic musical torture. Is the only way I can put it. basically the school store that I worked at would play a selection of about 30 to 35 songs at maximum volume all day. And this song was one of them. So, I mean, it was something that was shoved down my throat probably over 1,000 times, if not more than that, at a high volume. So
Now, when you say maximum volume, are you talking like you have to like speak above a normal speaking voice to have a conversation?
yes, that was the frustrating part because working in the department that we did, we weren't like selling, fucking T-shirts. We were selling thousands of dollars worth of course materials to parents who were like concerned about the pricing and like complicated course materials requirements. And I'm screaming over Ed Sheeran.
I'm sure all those parents were just like very pleasant to deal with too.
Yeah, they were already unhappy, and like everybody was like, "Why is the music so loud?" I was like, "I don't know." So anyway, the first time it happened, I mean, at this age, I don't remember many of my first times with songs anymore, but I remember distinctly when I heard this song the first time, like stopping dead in my tracks, like I said earlier, going, "You've got to be fucking kidding me," because of "Let's Get It On." I mean, it's one of the most blatant copies that I've ever heard musically in my entire life. And the fact that you're unable to copyright the essence of a song essentially is something that is just it flabbergasts me. It truly does.
So circling back a little bit, just because of what you just said, Hayden, Josh, maybe you can shed some light on this. When Sam Smith was accused of stealing from Tom Petty, "Stay With Me" being the Sam Smith song and "Won't Back Down" being the Petty song, is it because of the time that Petty and Jeff Lynne wrote that song that the essence was captured audibly and not just because it's, like late 80s, early 90s versus this earlier one that it's just so obvious because that one seemed to settle. There was never a lawsuit. The handlers of Sam Smith said, "No, you guys are right." And they just got added as co-writers.
Yeah, I mean, "Won't Back Down" was 1989, so at that point, when they registered the copyright, it probably most definitely would have been a recording. And
somebody around Sam Smith looked at it and said, "This is unwinnable in court," and didn't even take it there.
yes,
Versus how Ed Sheeran's legal team is handling this.
so I mean, the lawyers that you hire, they're probably people who special in copyright. They probably have their musical analyst on retainer, and so Sam Smith would have hired these guys. Both the legal team and the musical team would have looked at it, and their conclusion was like, yeah, you're going to lose this if it goes to trial.
It's funny because the Sam Smith song was also in this rotation that I'm speaking of at the store that I was subjected to. So both of these songs were constantly in rotation to me. So I was just walking around screaming at 18-year-olds about Marvin Gaye and Tom Petty constantly. And they're just like, what are you talking about, dude?
Sam Smith's defense that he had never heard, this is tangential to the Sheeran stuff, but he said that he had never heard "I Won't Back Down." He said, "I'm 22 years old. How would I have heard that?" It's like, how would you not have heard that song?
Well, I mean, to me, that's just indicative of a lot of these guys who, I mean, I don't know about Ed Sheeran. He seems to maybe have actually been steeped in some of the older music, as evidence, at least from that set list we looked at. But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a lot of these people, like a Sam Smith, I don't know much about him, but my assumption would be that, so much of what he does is created in a producer lab. So I don't blame Sam Smith because, yeah, maybe he never actually heard Tom Petty. And, given, I don't know what his background is, but certainly the people that were putting together the music and writing it, they knew.
Had to have.
And they just didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's the guy. I don't know if Sam Smith has writing credit for that song or if it's just his producers, but like, I could definitely see a world where someone that age may never have been exposed to that kind of music. Especially, I mean, Sam Smith's British too, right?
Right.
My conception of Tom Petty is that it was a strictly American rock group that didn't have as much crossover appeal in the UK.
They're pretty huge in the UK.
They were? Well, you probably know better than me, but
it's just crazy is all I'm saying. And it's an interesting issue of, your point about the sheet music was You think about the timing of these things.
Yeah.
Whereas Sam Smith is on the hook, and Ed Sheeran is having a billion legal dates to try to stall.
Yeah, and well, I'll talk about my opinion on the validity of the lawsuits, but first, before we talk about that, I may not play it on the actual podcast recording, but I want to play it for y'all and get your reaction. I lined the two up.
I don't know.
A little snippet of it. So I'm going to play it for you now.
That's fucking amazing.
So there's actually a really good YouTube video of this too. One of the inspirations for the podcast here, Rick Beato, has a YouTube channel. He's a producer, worked in the industry forever, but he has a YouTube channel where he does a lot of analysis, and he has a bit where he kind of, rather than layering on top, he puts them back to back and kind of talks about the similarities between the two. So I would recommend anyone listening to go check out. That's Rick Beato, and just search, Ed Sheeran with him, and you'll probably find that video. I had to raise the key by a half step for Ed Sheeran, and then I think speed it up just a little bit because the tempos weren't exactly the same. But I mean, the lawsuit is all about the rhythm and the quote unquote heart of the song. And,
Yeah.
People who are familiar with the Marvin Gaye song, obviously it's just impossible not to think about this immediately. But as for my opinion on the lawsuit, I don't think Ed Sheeran will lose this lawsuit.
No, it's not looking good.
And the reason is because you hear in that little mashup, Marvin Gaye is singing at the times that Ed Sheeran is not, and vice versa, right? It's not, I don't think it's written down in the copyright law, but the legal precedent is that the elements of the song that are quote unquote copyrightable are the melody and the lyrics. So you can't copyright a chord progression or a rhythmic beat or feel, which is really what's happening with the copying of the Ed Sheeran song.
Yeah, it's really all in the bass and drums.
Yes, and there's various like shades of how you argue against that. So, for instance, there's the famous lawsuit between Bowie and Vanilla Ice for Under Pressure.
Sure.
And the obvious copy was the bass line. So even though it's the quote unquote bass line, the bass line is distinctive enough melodically to be considered part of the composition.
Because it's the hook.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the vocal melody. I mean, there is no vocal melody in Vanilla Ice. He's just rapping. So it's all about the fact that this bass line, the lawyers argue that this bass line is so melodic in nature and is really the core of the song. So that's why Vanilla Ice lost that lawsuit. And I think that, Sheeran's probably got really good lawyers that they're going to be able to say, you can't copyright the chord progression and you can't copyright the drum groove. So therefore, it is a quote unquote unique work.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And it's unfortunate because I think it really is. Again, it's one of these situations where even if this Amy Wadge or Ed Sheeran were somehow not familiar with Let's Get It On, somebody in that production process had to have heard that and said, ooh, this definitely sounds pretty close, but we can probably get away with it.
Just to wrap up my hatred for this song, I just wanted to point out that how acute the PTSD I had was from listening to this song so many times that when someone would go in and because eventually some people would start going insane in the store and someone would go and change the station to like a classic rock station, just anything, to get a break from these songs. And for those brief moments before it would get changed back to the pop rotation, it would literally make me excited to hear like Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses.
That's pretty bad.
And that's unforgivable. Like Janie's Got a Gun comes on, I'm like singing along and dancing, like happy.
You've truly reached the low when like 90s era Aerosmith comes on and it makes your day better and not worse.
I'm like fist pumping to Paradise City,
Well,
oh, won't you please? I'm sorry.
So I'll talk about some of the details of my problem with it. Is not so much that it copies Marvin Gaye, but it sanitizes it. And there's several aspects that do this. I mean, what we're talking about is the chord progression and groove for the verse and chorus of Ed Sheeran's is the same as the verse and chorus of Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye has a little different bridge section, and Sheeran has this little pre-chorus thing where it's completely different. So it's just this one section. But in the key of D, which is Sheeran's key, there's slight differences in the chord changes. So like the second chord in Sheeran is a D with an F sharp in the bass, whereas with Marvin Gaye it's actually just an F sharp minor chord, which Sheeran's is just it serves the same function in the chord progression, but it's just a weaker harmonic movement. You're not actually changing the chord, you're just moving the bass, which is fine.
Thanks, nerd.
There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't sound as interesting. And then the last chord of that section, Sheeran just plays a normal A chord, where Gaye, they have an A7. And it's kind of like going from one pepper to no peppers at a Thai restaurant, is what's happening there.
One chili pepper to 0.
So, yes. And to like say, I want no chili peppers, but like, make sure you don't put any spices in it. Just no spices, please.
Make sure there's no pepper in there.
I can't even
You guys are saying chili peppers an awful lot. You're just dangling it out there.
Just dangling like George Ezra's little dingus or Sheeran, whatever. I can't stop it. I can't get him straight. I swear to God.
So the rhythm, the drum beat, is another aspect, and this is sort of one of the things that people talk a lot about when comparing the two. The drum patterns are the same, but the drummer in the original Marvin Gaye recording has a much more laid back, like sort of in the pocket feel, where those kind of the hits with the bass drum on like the eighth note syncopations, they're just pushed a little bit, so they're not quite exactly on grid, whereas Sheeran's rhythm is very much on grid. And by on grid I mean subdivisions are even, and they definitely used a click track to get it just to be perfectly quote unquote in time, and that makes everything sound kind of rigid. Like my least favorite fucking part of the song is that we found love right where we are, because it's just so stale and boring. The rhythm is just it's
very milquetoast.
Yes, it's definitely to help white people dance, I think, is what's happening there.
Speaking of being in the pocket, wink, by the way, that brings me to something I have to bring up.
Okay.
In regards to the YouTube video for this song. This morning I was watching the video, and then I went and watched the 2 different Marvin Gaye videos for Let's Get It On, just because that song is awesome, and I hadn't heard it in so long. I was kind of digging, listening to it with headphones on, and I noticed that on the official Marvin Gaye video, they had turned the comments off, which is my bread and butter for this podcast. So I was a little irritated at that. So I went and pulled the next largest video that was basically just a vinyl rip that somebody had made with just a picture of Marvin Gaye. It had a lot of comments, right? And I found out very quickly why Marvin Gaye's estate turned off the comments on his original video, because there's just so many parent banging jokes. I mean, just like some real good ones here.
Oh, God.
I've got some examples for you.
Please.
I'm sorry, Mom. Okay. I overheard this song in my parents' room at 2 a.m. This song was such a masterpiece that they were even clapping. Whenever my parents listen to this song in their bedroom, my mom always seems to really agree with my dad. Just like the first time you visit your cousin in Alabama. And maybe the coup de grace. I remember this song when I was in my dad's balls.
Oh, God.
But what I went searching for was not excellent parent banging jokes. What I went searching for was to see if anybody brought up Ed Sheeran on the Marvin Gaye comment section. Of course they did, several times, including one individual said, "Wow, Ed Sheeran made such an iconic song that Marvin Gaye went back in time and remixed it." So that was fun.
Continuing with the sanitation idea, the melody, again, that's sort of at the crux of copyright law, as I mentioned, but it's also the thing that's the most different between the two, both in terms, there's some similarities in the rhythmic structure of the melody, but Sheeran's draws entirely from the major pentatonic scale, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it makes it less interesting than Gaye, who is adding in like blues notes and off key, or not off key, but off chord tones, so it draws more heavily from a blues tradition, which is dissonant and has a lot of tension in it, to Sheeran, who is just like, we're just going to keep it right in the middle of the road with our major scale here. And so again, it's sort of a sanitation. And then the lyrics are also a sanitation. I mean, whereas Gaye's lyrics are mostly pretty directly about, hey, let's fuck. Sheeran's are essentially, in my opinion, like a Hallmark greeting card. I mean,
Yeah.
You have all the tropes like take me in your arms, kissing under the stars. You have saccharine nonsense like, we found love right where we are. What does that mean? You're always right where you are. Doesn't make any sense.
Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, and that
In the mall, in the church parking lot,
in the church parking lot,
in the Chili's. I feel God in this Chili's tonight, you guys.
and then of course, the overall story of love lasting into old age. We kind of mentioned this earlier. It makes me think that this song was like, let's take Marvin Gaye's "Let's Get It On" and package it in a way so it could be played at super waspy weddings.
Weddings that were planned on Pinterest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's the demographic.
It's a wide-reaching demographic.
Yeah. It's the kind of people who get uncomfortable if "Let's Get It On" came on during the wedding reception, and like the dad would be uncomfortable because he's realizing like, oh shit, my daughter's going to have sex tonight.
But if this song is played, it's probably one of the last times. They're going to be too busy from like breaking apart pallets for wood for a coffee table to actually do anything on Saturday night.
Or buying artisanal brooms to hang on their wall.
Got to get those gather signs to hang above the kitchen.
It's interesting. So we talked a lot about the Marvin Gaye, stuff. I went digging just a little bit through some review kind of stuff. Didn't find much other than what we've already talked about. But I did go through Rate Your Music quite a bit, looking to see what people were talking about in relation to the song. And there's one guy is way off base here, and I know we've already talked about this person twice today, but this is what let me get his name. His username is BlenderNoob69. Had to say about Ed Sheeran Sneaking Out Loud. This song is way overhated. I kind of like the song, but Ed definitely ripped it off from Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton. Quote, I like this song too. What the fuck is that guy talking about? I went, unfortunately, also this morning, went and listened to Eric Clapton and listened to that song for the first time in a long time, and that's not even in the ballpark.
Yeah, my recollection of it I have seen no similarities other than it's just
none at all.
I mean, maybe he just heard them at a wedding reception back to back and was like, these songs serve the same purpose.
These songs suck. Trademark. And the only other thing I found of relevance on there is just one more little funny one-liner. A near prepubescent ginger doing his own variation of Let's Get It On. Could have been much worse, 3 out of 5.
That's really that pretty much sums it up for me.
I mean, it's pretty perfect.
Adam, do you have anything to add that we haven't already talked about?
No, I mean not really. I think the idea of it's not only sanitizing the Marvin Gaye, it's like almost like a romance novel kind of appeal. Critics pointed out when I was reading that it's almost the Washington Post, Alison Stewart, hailed it. So she's complimenting it, but says it's a blatant and mercilessly effective bid for I'll Be style wedding song immortality. So I mean, you can't really, I guess, judge a commercial artist for why they write a song that they want to be popular, but it's just so like paint by numbers. Here's what I'm trying to do. I mean, I'll give it to him for who he is. He sings his ass off in the song. I get why this is a huge song, but everything you said about like composition, like all the milquetoast choices throughout, I mean, I guess that's why it's big too. The reasons we don't like it are why it's huge.
Nobody consumes like the whites.
That is true. I mean, I agree that it's you can't deny Ed Sheeran being a really talented vocalist and is a good performer. But I think that is the crux. Is just it really stands out to us anyway. It seems as a really crass commercial grab. Again, it's a white person essentially stealing music from black people and probably making a fuck ton more money off of it.
Yeah, it's hard not to, even though we've pointed out the difference in the Sam Smith, Tom Petty situation, like how differently the Marvin Gaye estate and everyone who has a stake in that is being treated. It could just be purely legal, but with Tom Petty, it was like, oh shit, our bad, here you go, versus fighting tooth and nail to hang on to the legal right from Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, and which it kind of doesn't make sense in the context of them settling or just giving the writing credits to the writers of No Scrubs like they did for Shape of You. And I really think that the reason that they're fighting on this one is because the lawyers know that they'll probably win on the
Right.
based on the technicalities of copyright law.
I mean, I guess you don't get to be super rich by saying, oops, that is kind of similar. Our bad, I feel bad. Here's a cut.
Yeah, but it's also, again, it's a sort of thing where even if he has to share writing credits with the heirs of Ed Townsend, the guy has made millions of dollars off this song and will continue to make money off this song. He'll just make half of that,
Slightly
maybe.
less.
Yeah.
Not even half, probably.
Well, unless I think we're done beating this horse to death here. So thanks, guys, as always, Hayden and Adam, for joining to talk about the music we'll hate, and we'll see you next time. This Song Sucks is brought to you by The Alabama Take. Follow us on Instagram at This Song Sucks Pod and on Twitter at SucksPod. You can also find us on the Alabama Take Facebook page. Comments, hate mail, and song suggestions for future shows can be sent to thisSongSucksPod@gmail.com.